Nobody noticed the cleaning lady crying until the party host took a surprising action. His gesture opened the door to an opportunity that would change her life, but intrigues and sabotage almost destroyed everything. The ending left even her enemies speechless. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. We'll continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear in your life. The alarm screamed at 4 in the morning, cutting through the shallow sleep that Emily had managed after a night of worries. Her feet touched the cold floor of the small apartment in Chicago's outskirts, and the first thought that came to mind was the same as every day. How much longer could she maintain this pace? In the room next door, her mother coughed softly, a sound that had become the constant soundtrack of her life in recent months. Mrs. Nancy, 72 years old, had developed a chronic respiratory condition that required expensive medications and frequent doctor visits. The basic health insurance covered only the essentials, leaving a monthly bill that consumed almost half of Emily's salary. With each medicine purchased, each exam performed, she made mental calculations that never quite balanced. In the quick, 5-minute shower, Emily tried to organize her thoughts for another day. She had been working as a cleaner at Sullivan Cleaning Services for 3 years, a job she had gotten after months of unemployment when the garment factory where she sewed closed its doors. The early morning schedule allowed her to care for her mother during the day, but it took its toll in accumulated fatigue and a constant feeling of always running against time. She arrived at the company locker room at 5:30, greeting her colleagues who were already preparing for another workday. With a nod, her navy blue uniform was clean and ironed, because Emily always believed that dignity began with appearance, even in the most difficult circumstances. She was checking the cleaning products in her work bag when Sarah, the supervisor, appeared, with an expression she knew well. "Emily, I need you for an extra job today. The event at the Lakeside Commercial Building ended late yesterday, and the client wants the hall spotless by 7 in the morning. It's a large space. You'll be going alone, but it pays overtime." Sarah spoke in a professional tone, but there was a nuance that Emily couldn't quite decipher. It was as if the supervisor knew something she didn't. The overtime proposal was tempting, especially with medical bills piling up. Emily nodded, took the additional materials, and headed to the address indicated. The building was imposing, with marble walls and crystal chandeliers that reflected the artificial light of the Chicago dawn. The night doorman led her to the 22nd floor, where a spacious hall awaited her attention. The space had hosted some type of corporate event. Tables were still partially set up, glasses forgotten here and there, and on the floor, stains of various types that told the story of a busy night. Emily sighed, tied her hair in a firm bun, and began working. The first 2 hours passed at a steady pace. She collected forgotten items, organized the tables, vacuumed the carpets, and began the detailed cleaning of the marble floor. It was meticulous work that required attention to every corner, every stain, every reflection that should shine perfectly when the sun rose. Around 7 in the morning, a particularly stubborn stain near the central stage resisted all the products she had tried. She knelt on the floor, applied the remover once more, and began scrubbing in circular motions. That's when physical exhaustion met emotional exhaustion, and tears began to fall silently. They weren't tears of self-pity, but of pressure that seemed endless. Her mother's cardiologist bill had arrived the previous week, higher than expected. The apartment needed plumbing repairs. The bus fare had increased. Small things that added together created a mountain she climbed every day, never reaching the top. "Excuse me, is everything all right?" The male voice made her quickly raise her head, wiping the tears with the back of her gloved hand. A man of about 40, wearing a dark suit and impeccable tie, was watching her with an expression of genuine concern. Emily stood up, feeling her face flush with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, sir. It's almost ready. Just this stain that's being a bit more resistant." Her voice came out more trembling than she would have liked, but she tried to maintain professional composure. "No need to apologize. I'm Richard Morgan. I was responsible for last night's event. I arrived early to check some details and..." He hesitated for a moment. I didn't expect to find someone working with such dedication at this hour. There was something in the way he spoke that didn't seem rehearsed or condescending. Emily nodded, turning her attention back to the stain that was finally beginning to yield. It's part of the job, sir. Everything will be ready soon. Richard remained there for a few minutes, observing the meticulousness with which she treated each detail. It wasn't just cleaning, it was care. The way she reorganized the chairs, aligning them perfectly, how she wiped an extra cloth over places that already looked clean, how she checked twice to make sure she hadn't forgotten any detail. "Do you always work alone in spaces this size?" he asked, genuinely curious. "When necessary, yes. Today was an extra job. I normally work as part of a team." Emily wasn't accustomed to conversations during work, especially with clients, but there was something in his approach that didn't seem intrusive. When she finally finished, Richard made a visual inspection of the environment. The hall was impeccable, every surface shining, every corner organized. He took a card from the inside pocket of his jacket and extended it to her. "Your work is exceptional. If you ever need anything or want to discuss other opportunities, this is my card." He paused as if weighing his next words. "Sometimes talents like yours deserve bigger spaces to shine." Emily took the card, quickly reading, "Richard Morgan, Director of Social Projects, Horizon Enterprise Group." He wasn't just any client, but someone with a position at one of the city's largest companies. "Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure to take care of your event's venue." She put the card in her bag, not giving much credit to the conversation, but with a strange feeling that this encounter had been different from the usual ones. When she left the building, the sun was already peeking between Chicago's buildings, tinting the sky with orange hues. The city's movement was beginning to intensify, people walking hurriedly to another workday. Emily took the bus back home, Richard's card forgotten at the bottom of her bag, while her mind was already planning how to better use her rest hours before her mother woke up and needed her midday medicine. She couldn't imagine that brief encounter in the Chicago dawn was about to alter the course of her life in ways that not even her most optimistic dreams could predict. 2 weeks passed without Emily thinking much about the encounter with Richard. The card remained stored in her dresser drawer, among bills to pay and her mother's medical prescriptions. The routine continued relentlessly. Early morning work, mornings caring for Mrs. Nancy, afternoons running after exams and medications, nights planning how to stretch the budget until the next paycheck. It was on a Thursday that Sarah arrived at the locker room with news that made Emily's heart race. "Girls, we've closed a big contract. The Horizon Enterprise Group wants our services for their central office 3 times a week. It's an important client, so I'll personally supervise the first services." Emily felt a chill in her stomach upon hearing the company's name. Could it be a coincidence? Chicago had thousands of companies, but that specific name brought back the memory of the man in the dark suit who had shown genuine interest in her work. "Emily, you're coming with me the first week. I want to show the client that we have dedicated our professionals," Sarah announced, and there was something in her tone that seemed different from the usual, more calculating, more observant. The following Monday, Emily reported to the Horizon Enterprise Group building at 6 in the morning. The structure was even more imposing than the event venue, with interior gardens, artwork on the walls, and an environment that breathed prosperity. Sarah had arrived earlier and was already talking to someone from administration when she approached. "This is Emily, one of our best professionals," Sarah introduced, but there was a coldness in her voice that Emily knew well. It was the tone the supervisor used when she wanted to maintain distance, when she made it clear that unnecessary conversations were not welcome. The work began on the administrative floors, spacious rooms with quality furniture and cutting-edge technology. Emily was concentrating on each task when, around 8 in the morning, a familiar voice echoed down the hallway. "Good morning. How's the first day going?" Richard appeared, impeccably dressed as the first time, but with a smile that showed he had recognized Emily immediately. "Good morning, Mr. Morgan," Emily replied, feeling Sarah's penetrating gaze upon her. "It's A pleasure to work in such a well-organized environment. Sarah quickly approached, taking control of the conversation. Mr. Morgan, I'm sure our team will meet all expectations. We are a serious company, with trained and disciplined professionals. I'm sure of that, Richard agreed, but his eyes remained on Emily for a few more seconds. If you need anything, I'll be on the 28th floor. When he walked away, Sarah turned to Emily with an expression that mixed irritation and suspicion. How do you know him? He was responsible for an event I cleaned 2 weeks ago. That's all. Emily responded with sincerity, but realized that the explanation hadn't completely satisfied the supervisor. Look, Emily, I'll be clear with you. This is a very important client for our company. I don't want any kind of excessive familiarity. We always maintain a professional posture, without unnecessary conversations or approaches that could be misinterpreted. Understand? The message was delivered with crystal clarity, and Emily nodded, although a part of her felt unjustified. She had done nothing but work with dedication, but apparently that had been interpreted as something problematic. The following days passed without incident. Emily focused on her work, avoided unnecessary contacts, and tried to be flawless in every detail. But she couldn't help noticing that Richard discreetly observed her work, not in an invasive or uncomfortable way, but with the same genuine attention he had shown in their first encounter. In the 4th week of the contract, on a particularly quiet night, Richard appeared on the floor where Emily was working alone. Sarah had left early to resolve administrative issues with another client. Emily, could you give special attention to my office today? I have an important meeting early tomorrow and would like everything to be perfect. The request was professional, but there was something more in his voice. She went to his office, a spacious area with a view of the city, decorated with books, plants, and photographs of social projects. While organizing the papers on the desk, Richard entered and closed the door behind him. Emily, I need to talk to you about something important. He sat in the armchair in front of the desk, gesturing for her to sit as well. For weeks, I've been observing your work, and it's not just the technical quality that impresses me. It's your care, your attention to detail, your way of treating each space as if it were special. Emily remained silent, not knowing exactly where the conversation would lead. I manage the social projects division of this company. We develop professional training programs, support for families in social vulnerability, partnerships with NGOs. It's work that requires someone who really cares, who understands that behind each number there's a real life. He paused, as if organizing his next thoughts. I have a position open for an administrative assistant in my department. The salary is 40% higher than what you currently earn, with a complete health plan that covers the entire family, meal allowance, and growth opportunities. But more important than that, it would be a job where you could make a difference in other people's lives. Emily felt her heart race. It was an opportunity that seemed unreal, too good to be true. Mr. Morgan, I don't have administrative experience. I've always worked in cleaning. Experience can be acquired, Emily. What can't be taught is character, dedication, the ability to truly care. And you demonstrate that every day. Richard leaned forward, speaking with evident sincerity. I know it's an important decision. You don't need to answer now. Think carefully. Talk with your family. Emily left that room with her mind in a whirlwind. An opportunity like that could solve not only her financial difficulties, but offer a completely different future. The health plan would cover her mother's treatments. The salary would allow a more dignified life, and perhaps, for the first time in years, she could sleep without worrying about bills at the end of the month. But there was something in Sarah's words that bothered her. The insinuations about excessive familiarity, the suspicious looks, the way the supervisor seemed to interpret each gesture as suspicious. Was she really being offered an opportunity on merit, or could there be other possible interpretations? Walking. Through the empty streets of the Chicago dawn, Emily found herself thinking about all the times she had dreamed of a chance to grow professionally. Now that it was there, concrete and real, she felt divided between hope and fear that it was too good to be true. Emily spent the entire night awake, tossing and turning in bed while Richard's proposal echoed in her mind. Beside her, Mrs. Nancy slept with heavy breathing, interspersed with coughs that had become more frequent in recent weeks. The complete health plan that was part of the offer could mean access to better treatments, renowned specialists, medications that were previously financially out of reach for the family. The next morning, she decided to talk to her mother about the opportunity. Mrs. Nancy, despite her fragile health condition, maintained the lucidity and wisdom accumulated over decades of life. "Daughter, opportunities like this don't knock on our door every day," said the lady, holding Emily's hands between her own, dried out by medications. "If this man saw something special in you, maybe it's time for you to see it too." But there was a concern that Emily couldn't completely dismiss. Sarah's words, laden with insinuations, had planted a seed of doubt. Was it really professional recognition, or were there unexplicated expectations behind the offer? The next day she arrived at work determined to give Richard an answer. But before she could look for him, Sarah intercepted her in the locker room with a more severe expression than usual. "Emily, we need to talk. I heard that you had a private meeting with Mr. Morgan the day before yesterday." It wasn't a question but a statement, and the tone made it clear that the supervisor had not approved. "He asked me to give special attention to his office for an important meeting, nothing beyond our normal work," Emily responded. Technically truthful, but omitting what had been discussed. "Look, I'm going to be very direct with you. I received some information that there might be a job offer involved. If that's true, you need to be very careful." Sarah lowered her tone, but her words carried a threatening weight. Men in positions of power don't always have the purest intentions, if you know what I mean. Emily felt her face burn. The insinuation was clear and deeply hurtful. "I don't know what you're talking about, Sarah. I've always maintained exemplary professional behavior. Of course, I'm just saying that if something like that really exists, you should think twice. Sometimes what seems like an opportunity can turn into a very complicated situation." Sarah walked away, leaving Emily with a mixture of anger and insecurity. But it was during the lunch break that she learned something that made her even more apprehensive. She accidentally overheard a conversation between human resources staff about possible budget cuts at the company, which could affect hirings planned for the next quarter. Would Richard's offer still stand? She decided to look for him that same afternoon. She found him in his office analyzing project reports with a concentrated expression. When she knocked on the door, he looked up and smiled. "Emily, I was expecting you. Have you thought about the proposal?" "Mr. Morgan, before I answer, I need to better understand some things." Emily sat in the chair in front of the desk, carefully choosing her words. "This opportunity, is it really based on my work, on my competence?" Richard tilted his head, surprised by the question. "Of course it is. Why do you ask?" "Because some people are insinuating that there might be other motives involved." Emily decided to be direct, even risking sounding offensive. Richard's expression changed, becoming more serious. "Emily, I completely understand your concern, and I'm actually pleased that you verbalized it. It shows maturity and intelligence." He leaned back in his chair, speaking in a serene but firm tone. "This offer is exclusively professional. You've demonstrated qualities we look for in our team: dedication, attention to detail, ability to work under pressure, and most importantly, genuine concern for the result of your work." He opened a drawer and removed a folder with documents. "Here are the detailed responsibilities of the position, performance expectations, the department's organizational chart, and the training schedule. Everything is documented and transparent. Additionally, you'll work directly with a team of 5 people in an open and collaborative environment." Emily leafed through the papers, impressed with the level of detail and organization. There was nothing there that suggested anything beyond. A legitimate professional opportunity. "One last thing," Richard continued. "If you accept, during the first 3 months you'll have direct supervision from our project coordinator, Sandra Adams, a professional with 15 years of experience in the field. She will be your mentor and will evaluate your performance monthly." The clarity of the explanation dispelled most of Emily's doubts. I accept the opportunity, Mr. Morgan, and I thank you for the transparency. Great. The hiring process will begin next week. You'll need to leave your current company by the end of the month. Richard extended his hand for a formal handshake. Welcome to the team. Sarah's reaction to the news was even worse than Emily had imagined. The supervisor called her for a private conversation at the end of the shift, and her hostility was almost palpable. So you really decided to accept the offer, Sarah said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I hope you know what you're getting into. It's an opportunity for professional growth, Sarah. Anyone would make the same choice. Emily replied, trying to stay calm. We'll see if it's really just that. The supervisor picked up a folder on the desk. Since you're leaving, I need you to organize all your activity reports from the last few months. And I want everything very well documented, without any failures or inconsistencies. Emily spent the next few days meticulously preparing all the requested documentation. She knew that Sarah would look for any reason to create problems, and she didn't intend to give her that opportunity. It was on the eve of her last day at the cleaning company that she discovered the true extent of Sarah's hostility. Her colleague Anna privately approached her in the locker room. Emily, I need to tell you something. Last night I saw Sarah collecting your reports from the desk, but after you left, she messed with some documents. I don't know exactly what she did, but I thought it was strange. Emily's heart raced. The next day, she arrived earlier and carefully checked all the documentation she had prepared. To her horror, she found several inconsistencies that she knew she hadn't made. Altered dates, missing signatures in places where she was sure she had put them, incomplete reports that she had delivered complete. It was a clear attempt to tarnish her professional image right at the moment of transition to the new job. If those inconsistencies reached Richard's or the Human Resources Department's knowledge, they could seriously compromise her reputation. Emily worked feverishly throughout the entire early morning, correcting all the malicious alterations, redoing reports, and ensuring that each document was perfect. She knew she couldn't directly confront Sarah without concrete evidence, but she could ensure that the sabotage attempt wouldn't have the desired effect. When she delivered the final documentation, Sarah examined each page with excessive attention, clearly looking for the flaws she had created. Her expression of frustration at finding everything perfectly organized was almost comical, if it wasn't so disturbing. Everything seems to be in order, she said finally, clearly displeased. Emily said goodbye to her colleagues with genuine emotion. They were working women like her, who faced their own daily struggles. Some showed sincere joy for her opportunity, others seemed envious, but all recognized that she deserved a chance to grow. Walking home on her last day as a cleaner, Emily felt a mixture of relief, anxiety, and hope. She had overcome the first sabotage attempt, but knew that the challenges were just beginning. In a few days, she would enter a completely different world, where she would have to prove not only her competence, but also her ability to adapt and grow. The first day as an administrative assistant at the Horizon Enterprise Group was a mixture of nervousness and determination. Emily arrived at 8 o'clock sharp, wearing a simple but elegant business outfit she had bought with part of her severance pay from the previous company. Sandra Adams, her new supervisor, was a middle-aged woman with a professional but welcoming demeanor who received her with a genuine smile. Emily, welcome. Richard told me about your profile, and I'm eager to work together. Let's start by getting to know our main projects. Sandra led her through the offices, introducing the team and explaining the dynamics of the department. The first months were intense. Emily needed to learn about spreadsheets, reports, activity coordination, and communication with external partners, but each day brought confirmation that she had made the right decision. The environment was collaborative, people were respectful, and she felt that her work really made a difference in the lives of others. The main program under her responsibility offered professional training for young people in situations of social vulnerability. There were courses in computer science, cooking, crafts, and administrative techniques that provided real opportunities for entry into the job market. Seeing the hopeful faces of participants at graduation ceremonies reminded Emily of her own journey of overcoming. But not everything was smooth. Some colleagues showed veiled resistance to her presence, whispering about favoritism and questioning her qualifications. There were moments when Emily heard malicious comments in the hallways, speculations about how she had gotten the position, insinuations that deeply hurt her. It was during one of these difficult situations that Richard called her for a conversation. He had noticed the tension and wanted to understand if something was harming her performance. "Emily, I've noticed you're more withdrawn lately. Is there anything I can help with?" he asked with genuine concern. She hesitated, but decided to be honest. "Some people here believe my hiring wasn't based on merit. It makes me uncomfortable and sometimes makes me question if I really deserve to be here." Richard sighed as if he had expected this issue. "Emily, since you arrived, our department has improved significantly. Reports are more organized, deadlines are strictly met, and partners constantly praise our efficiency. This isn't luck or favoritism, it's competence." He stood up and went to the window, observing the city's movement below. "Do you know what my biggest surprise about you was? I discovered that during our first cleaning contracts, you often stayed beyond your hours to ensure everything was perfect without charging overtime. That shows character, and character is something that can't be bought or simulated." Richard's words brought relief, but Emily knew she needed to prove her worth through concrete results, and the opportunity came when there was a crisis in the funding of the main program. Sponsors were re-evaluating partnerships due to the country's economic situation, and there was a real risk of closing some classes. Emily worked tirelessly to find solutions. She researched public funding opportunities, contacted companies that might have a social interest in supporting the project, organized promotional campaigns on social media. Her dedication impressed even the most skeptical colleagues. The solution came through an innovative partnership with a supermarket chain that wanted to invest in social responsibility. Emily had identified that they needed trained professionals in customer service, and the young people in the program needed job opportunities. The connection between need and supply resulted in an agreement that benefited all parties involved. During the proposal presentation to the supermarket chain executives, Emily felt a confidence she didn't know she possessed. She spoke passionately about the project's objectives, presented numbers organized in impeccable spreadsheets, and answered all questions with knowledge and assurance. "Approved," announced the chain's director at the end of the meeting. "We want to be partners in this project." The celebration at the office was exciting. Sandra hugged Emily with maternal pride. Richard smiled with genuine satisfaction, and even the most resistant colleagues publicly recognized the quality of her work. But it was 3 months later, during a graduation ceremony, that Emily experienced the most exciting moment of her new career. A lady of approximately 60 approached her after the ceremony, holding by the hands a young woman of about 20. "Are you Emily who coordinates the program?" asked the lady with a choked voice. "Yes, ma'am. How can I help you?" "This is my granddaughter, Julie. She completed the computer course last month and got an internship position at a company in the region. I wanted to personally thank you for giving our family an opportunity." The lady wiped away the tears that were beginning to fall. "I'm a widow. I raised Julie alone, and sometimes it seemed there was no hope. You've given us back hope." Emily felt a lump in her throat. In that moment, she remembered the dawn when she had cried kneeling on the marble floor, feeling lost and without prospects. Someone had believed in her, given her an opportunity, and now she was in a position to do the same for others. It was a few weeks after this ceremony that Sarah reappeared in her life. The ex-supervisor contacted her by phone, asking to meet. Emily hesitated, but curiosity was greater than reluctance. They met in a coffee shop near the office. Sarah was visibly uncomfortable, nervously fidgeting with her hands before starting to speak. "Emily, I know I have no right to ask anything after what I did, but I need to talk to you." Her voice was different, more humble, without its characteristic haughtiness. "I want to apologize for what I said, for what I tried to do, for the way I treated you." Emily remained silent, allowing Sarah to continue. "The truth is that I was envious because you got an opportunity that I always dreamed of having, but never had the courage to pursue. Instead of being inspired by your example, I chose to try to sabotage you." Sarah lowered her eyes, clearly embarrassed. "I almost sent an anonymous complaint to the human resources of your new company, inventing stories about your professional conduct. But at the last minute I realized how despicable that was and gave up." The revelation left Emily shocked. She could have lost everything because of a false complaint based purely on envy. "Why are you telling me this now?" asked Emily. "Because I need to restart my life and I can't do that carrying this weight. And also because, well, I would like to ask for your help." Sarah raised her eyes timidly. "I heard that your company sometimes refers professionals to external partners. I'm looking for an opportunity to grow, to be better than I was." Emily was silent for a few minutes, processing everything she had heard. The initial anger gave way to a more complex understanding of the situation. Sarah had made serious mistakes, but was taking responsibility and asking for a chance to redeem herself. "I can make some inquiries and see if there are opportunities suitable for your profile," Emily finally said. "But it will be based exclusively on your qualifications, and you'll have to prove your worth." "That's all I can ask for," Sarah replied with evident gratitude. A few weeks later, Emily managed to refer Sarah for a position at a partner company. It was a smaller opportunity than hers, but it represented the chance to start over in an environment where she could demonstrate renewed capacity and character. The year of work at the Horizon Enterprise Group brought profound changes to Emily's life and her family. Mrs. Nancy had access to the best doctors. Her treatments had significantly improved her quality of life. The apartment was renovated, bills were paid on time, and for the first time in years, Emily could think about plans for the future. It was during the celebrations of 1 year in the position that Richard called her for another important conversation. This time, there was an even more surprising proposal: to lead the opening of a branch of the Social Projects Department in Milwaukee, expanding the reach of the programs to the state's interior. "It would be a significant promotion, Emily. You would have total autonomy to structure the team, define local strategies, and establish regional partnerships. The salary would be 50% higher than the current one, with all benefits maintained." The proposal was tempting, but Emily had learned to be cautious with important changes. "Can I have a few days to think? It's a decision that affects not just me, but my mother as well." "Of course. There's no rush, but there's one important thing I need to clarify." Richard paused, as if carefully weighing his next words. "Throughout this entire year, our relationship has been strictly professional, as it should be. But I can't deny that I've developed a genuine admiration for you as a person and as a professional." Emily felt her heart race, not knowing exactly where the conversation was heading. "If you accept the promotion, and if in the future there's mutual interest in exploring something beyond the professional relationship, I want you to know that it would be treated with total transparency. Nothing secretive, nothing that could compromise your reputation or career. But for now, my focus is exclusively on your professional growth." Richard's honesty impressed her. It was exactly the transparency she had always desired in all the important relationships in her life. That night, she talked at length with Mrs. Nancy about the new opportunity. Her mother, visibly stronger and more animated with the proper treatments, was categorical in her advice. "Daughter, when I was young, I lost many opportunities out of fear of change. You have talent, you have character, you have everything to be successful wherever you go. And if Milwaukee means growth and new horizons, then that's where you should be." Emily accepted the promotion, establishing as a condition that any personal development in her relationship with Richard would always be transparent and documented, to avoid misunderstandings or speculation. The move to Milwaukee brought unexpected challenges. There was local resistance from organizations already working in the social area, questions about the arrival of a Chicago company, and tight deadlines to show results. Emily needed to use all her diplomacy and technical competence to establish the necessary partnerships. The most difficult moment came when one of the local managers tried to manipulate financial reports to discredit her management, hoping to take her position. But Emily had learned from past experiences. She kept rigorous documentation of all activities had backup of all important data, and had established direct communication channels with the headquarters. The sabotage attempt was quickly discovered, and the manager was fired. More important than that, the way Emily handled the crisis strengthened her credibility with the local team and external partners. 6 months later, the Milwaukee branch had exceeded all established goals. 3 new social programs were functioning, partnerships with local universities had been established, and more than 200 young people had already benefited from the training courses. At the official inauguration ceremony, Emily received praise from local authorities, representatives of partner NGOs, and especially from beneficiaries of the programs. It was confirmation that she had found not just a career, but a life mission. Richard had come from Chicago to participate in the ceremony. After the official events, he invited her to dinner to celebrate the success and talk about the next challenges. Emily, in 2 years you went from cleaner to regional director. That's not luck, it's absolute merit, he said during dinner, and now I have another proposal to make. Emily smiled, already accustomed to the surprises that Richard always brought. This time it's not professional. I would like to get to know Milwaukee better, and I thought you could be my tour guide tomorrow, as people who mutually admire each other, outside the corporate environment. The proposal was simple, honest and transparent, exactly as Emily had always wanted all the important relationships in her life to be. I accept, she replied, feeling a genuine happiness she hadn't experienced in a long time. The next day, as they walked through Milwaukee's historic center, Emily reflected on the extraordinary journey she had lived. 2 years earlier, she had cried kneeling on the cold marble floor, feeling lost and without prospects. Today, she was a recognized professional, capable of transforming lives and building opportunities for other people. You know what impresses me most about you? Richard asked as they watched the sunset from a high viewpoint. What? Your ability to transform obstacles into opportunities, to convert difficulties into learning. It's a rare and precious talent. Emily smiled, looking at the horizon stretching out before them. She had discovered that some of life's best opportunities are born in the most unlikely moments, from casual encounters that transform into transformative possibilities. And that regardless of where one starts, what really matters is the courage to continue growing, to continue believing that better days are always possible. As the sun set over Milwaukee, tinting the sky with golden and rosy hues, Emily knew she had found not just a promising career and a budding love, but mainly the certainty that her story was still just beginning. The end. Dear listeners, we hope that Emily's story has touched your hearts and shown how perseverance and dedication can completely transform a life. This journey of overcoming reminds us that extraordinary opportunities frequently arise in the most unexpected moments, and that our response to them defines our future. If this narrative moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to follow more inspiring stories like this one. Leave your like on the video and share your own experiences of overcoming and transformation in the comments. Every day we bring narratives that celebrate the strength of the human spirit and the beauty of second chances. Don't miss our next content, as each story we tell carries a message of hope and possibility.